Hello, I'm Koto Sharon Tembo and welcome to The Digest. 16 days of activism against gender-based violence runs a period from 25th November to 10th December, and Zambia is no exception in the 2022 commemorations under the theme, Are You Safe at Work, Home, School and Church? The 16 days of activism period is an organized strategy used by governments, non-governmental organizations, churches, individuals and other groups to call for the elimination of all forms of violence against women. The Digest team spoke to stakeholders about GBV and the interpretation of the 2022 theme, Are You Safe?
naona tapepa muna wamene sibasebenza bana problem kali mangana kansanje kokaendelera ona ti akapena mina ngwa zanitengera kali ndiwo mudiesa so bavuta maningi bamangana nsanje stali noti zifupi kali ngati basebenza paona ti uja sebenza nani sebenza mukabwera naye bapenda zake naye bapenda zake imangala simungamenyana nomenyana manje bantu lova so wamene sasebenza mamuntu amangani problem kana makuganizira vamene sungachite iwona kaize problem nulova wake nje nzoleta ndiwo mnyumba mwati nuna bwino nulova wake nzoleta problem.
Kulibe ubwino metonamo nganja beo vutisana kuvutisana January to December ngoyembekezela kuti kapena zani pasava kudya oro zabwati nenyane ndivyo yembekezela tapanyuma.
A common occurrence, an everyday thing it has become. A day barely passes without a report of a case of violence against women, whether in a rural or urban setting. In some areas, the number of reported cases average 50 a day, and widely believed, however, that many cases go unreported, yet the number keeps going up. The Victim Support Unit was established through the Zambia Police Amendment Act No. 14 of 1999 to ensure effective prevention, investigation, and excellent service delivery when dealing with cases of gender-based violence, and in particular with femicide, property grabbing, spouse battery, and sexual abuse of girl children. According to the Victim Support Unit Third Quarter Gender-Based Violence Data Analysis, 6,303 criminal cases and 2,487 non-criminal reports of GBV were reported countrywide, bringing the total to 8,790, translating to 71.7% and 28.3% respectively. There were 6,303 criminal reports recorded during the period under review, compared with 4,042 cases recorded during the third quarter of 2021, showing an increase by 2,261 cases, translating to a 55.9% increase. A total of 28 sodomy cases were recorded during the period under review.
We do a number of activities. For example, we receive reports of gender-based violence. Then we also follow up on the reports of gender-based violence. And in the process, we apprehend, detain, and arrest offenders of gender-based violence. But not only that, gender-based violence has two components: the non-criminal component and the criminal component. So when it comes to the non-criminal component, we provide counseling to offenders to deter them from reoffending, and also we provide professional counseling to victims to help them heal through the process of recovery when or after they're abused, because GBV can leave scars, can be very traumatizing. So being the first people that they come in contact with, even for us to be able to work with them, to listen to them, for them to be able to talk to us so that we can pick their story and compile statements therefrom, we need to have them stabilized. We need to provide support, psychosocial support, and then also help them through the process. So the way they are treated at the police station, which is the first entry in the criminal justice system, determines how they'll cooperate going forward. Most of the cases of GBV are kind of moral issues and hinge on family involvement, and also have perpetrators who are family members. So usually the family would say, okay, in as much as we appreciate the fact that you've been abused by a family member, within a domestic setup, we can handle this outside the police, outside the court system. So for them to be able to walk through that journey, they need to be supported by the police right from the entry point, right from the front desk. So with our mandate to protect rights and freedoms of citizens in this country, we have outlined a number of activities that are preventive in nature. As you may be aware, we have the mandate to prevent crime as embedded or enshrined in the Constitution. So with support from the GRZ-UN Joint Program on Gender-Based Violence, have printed a number of brochures for the country for use during sensitizations. That is on local and national level. Then on regional level, we're a member of SAPCO. And SAPCO is Southern African Regional Police Chiefs Cooperation Organization. So all SADC member states are therefore belong to SAPCO. So all these member countries have national women network structures. So through these national women's network structures, the SAPCO police chiefs decided to include an operation codenamed Basadi. Basadi means women in Swana, just like Lozi, it's Basadi. So this simultaneous codenamed Basadi operation is conducted in all member states within the 16 days of gender activism. So this year it will be held from the 5th to the 7th of December 2022, and it's done during that period by all SADC or SAPCO member states. So some of the activities that we do during the Basadi operation are to continue receiving reports on gender-based violence throughout the process, continue to follow up pending cases. We have cases that are pending for whatever reason. So it is this period that we demand that the pending cases are followed. The fresh cases are investigated. Counseling is provided to both offenders and victims, like I had earlier stated in our mandate. Then, as well as ensuring through especially the established fast-track courts in the provinces where they may be, ensure fast-tracking of these cases. There are cases which actually are very easy to fast-track. Evidence is there, everything is there. So during this period, we want to ensure that those cases are fast-tracked, up to the courts. So those are some of the activities that we are doing. Then within the 16 days, last week Monday, we successfully validated a training manual for the Zambia Police on gender-based violence for all levels, meaning it's a training manual that will be used by every member of the Zambia Police from strategic, operational to tactical levels. Because by now, the Zambia Police appreciates the mainstreaming in terms of prevention and response to GBV across all functions. We know as a police service that we have our different mandates. For example, if you look at paramilitary, in the mobile units, but now we are saying every police officer should be aware of GBV, should have the skills, the right attitudes as well. Because, for example, you look at the paramilitary officers, they may be deployed in an area where they are meant to restore public order, where there's public disorder, and then they come across these complaints of GBV. They should be able to respond accordingly, whatever they may be. They should not be able to say, for example, they are at a borderline and they have that report and they're thinking, we need to contact victim support at the nearest police station. They need to start to work on it, in a way that satisfies the victim and their family, as well as themselves, because they have a duty to protect the rights of citizens. So we have that training manual. Then we also intend during this period to hold an inception meeting. We want to develop a standard operating procedure, an SOP, on GBV in police stations. We want to standardize our operations so that when victims go to report, or anyone for that matter who's reporting on behalf of a victim, they should be able to comfortably report a case, say, at Matero police station. The procedures will be standard, the procedures will be professional. They go to Charleston police, it's the same, Makeni, Chawama. We don't want a situation where this station does this and people are able to say Matero is better than Charleston, or Officer A is better than Officer B. We want standardized services for people across. But really, during this period, we want to ensure that our front desk officers, we've already trained some of them. We also want to ensure that they also start to develop right attitudes when they are processing victims of GBV, because they are very key when it comes to receiving reports. So the ones that enter these reports at the front desk. So we also want to sensitize our fellow officers as we go to do the Basadi operation. We have included in our program, we've set aside time for us to be able to orient front desk officers in areas where we may be.
The Professional Teachers Union of Zambia are custodians of safety in schools and are integral in implementing and safeguarding children in schools.
As an individual union, we also get so much concerned when we get reports of gender violence. It's a fact that at the moment we have received a number of activities in that area, which is very unfortunate as a country. Gender violence has gone to another level. We have heard murder cases being reported due to minor conflicts in homes. We also heard one of the most tormenting episodes in the history of Zambia, where some girls were abducted and they were abused. That brings to a very sad reading for us. Gender violence is something which we all need to talk about. The teaching fraternity plays a major role in information dissemination. Workplaces inclusive in various sectors. Our role in this certainly is to be as loud as possible. So those who are involved in such activities, they should be counseled through our advocacy, so that gender violence does not continue to be headlines every time in the country. Teachers in schools, they should actually now inculcate the culture of anti-violence. I don't think there's any teachers violent, so we have to exhibit that leadership. Gender violence is one of the most retrogressive activity ever on earth. It has to demean the credibility, the potential of another person. Anger management actually comes in when you are dealing with gender violence. the police themselves, left alone, they may not be enough to deal with this. Actually, they are at implementation level, at crime level, to deal with the gender. Us as teachers and other community members, we must be at advocacy and counseling point so that it does not graduate to a crime where the police will take it up. Where negligence has been exhibited, we have seen people losing their lives, we have seen people being maimed, both men and women, they fall in that category, and potential victims of gender violence. So we need to be part of the advocacy. The religious groupings in the country, they also need to play a major role in this. I think we've seen women especially being demeaned publicly. That also forms part of gender violence, especially at bus stations, even at point of work stations and so on.
It's more of a blessing actually to have such interactions. It's very important because in as much as we meet people in church and we meet people in the streets, we may not know what exactly they go through. So when these things are being aired, it becomes insightful. It helps people to begin to understand on how to solve certain problems, and also helps us to avoid premature death. Because actually we've seen a lot of premature death because of the same, challenges that families are facing. It's very, very important, especially now, for Christians to start taking these things very serious. Why? In those days, we would misunderstand the Old Testament, why Moses would allow people to have their peaceful divorce. And one funny part is that in those days there was no court, but the husband made decisions. And to write a certificate of divorce for the wife to be on break. Jesus was asked the same question. I think we've had so many debates about these issues, especially in Zambia, until people started seeing people dying in marriage, abuse in marriage, all these other kind of activities going on in marriage. It's like that's the time when people started waking up. Because where we're coming from, it was tradition. You get married, you can't divorce. You get married, you can't walk out. And people die in marriages. So the more we begin to talk about it, the better. Because we need to preserve life. If you look at Jesus himself, he said, I have come so that you may have life and have it in abundance. What does he mean? It means he doesn't want anything that cuts short somebody's existence before God's time. And marriage has become more of a death trap at the moment. Because you marry a partner whose focus in resolving issues is fight, whose focus in resolving issues is insults. And these things, traditionally, they may not talk about them because they are taught to remain silent. In our cultures, we are taught that you have to endure. I think there's a word that is used in our languages. You have to endure because that's what marriage is all about. We've had these problems, and I don't want to see people face them. The same way I don't want my daughter abused in marriage, I wouldn't want another person's daughter abused in marriage. It's those days where marriage was a career, but this time marriage is a life and not a career. You are not getting married because you want somebody to look after you. You are getting married because this is what God has put in his own ordinances, that man shall not, it's not good for man to be alone. So if it is not good for man to be alone, will it be good for woman to be oppressed? Or will it be good for man to be oppressed? The answer is no. So why would God want man and woman to be together? Because he wants to see them happy. And that is where the deception is. Because a lot of people are running to church with their hidden characters to cover it up. And when they get into the house, the reality is different. In marriage and relationship, they seemed to be godly, upright, righteous, more focused on what they wanted to achieve. When they get married, they change to become the opposite of what the world ever saw. If you are to sit down with most, let's say 80% of married Christians, or you just decide to live under their roof, what you would see is shocking. You'll find these married couples who are holy in church, they are not holy at home. They don't resolve issues the way they may portray them in the public at home. At home is different. And if you see the book of Matthew chapter 5 verse 20, the Bible says, unless your righteousness exceed the righteousness of the Pharisees, you cannot see the kingdom of God. So there is a lot of pretense going on among Christians.
Vana tiri navo vatatu kumachikwati njovuta. Amuna uzapeza kutoa kusponsor kunobwino kulive vakabwira wokolewa ni kumenyana kuvutana ukawakonga kumabako ane vapezeka kutoro tengeko support ya vana ni kumenyana.
Ine ninakwatira naye mu 2010 vinabula kusira mu 2020 but mwamene nzopitira yenzo ngala sinenzo ngala bwino ndine magulisa eve sachita vivonse so nzo tenda kuna chipya kumaoda ine ngafika tenzo kuhule kunikira kumenya je serious yochoka magazi sinenzo shipa tabe ni shipa mai ninapona fika pa extent yako bati naona kumenyewa kuja kwapitirira
kumenyana kaira kabwana ukolewa nebuzamuza toro pali bendiyo pano vana sivanate basi paminapo ndio yayamba kumenyana.
Why? You need to know that the church is full of converted people, unconverted people. People come from the world and they feel the church is, they put it this way, in Pentecostal they say last bus stop. So I tried this side, like the woman with the issue of blood, I didn't find a husband. Let me go to church, dress nicely, become spirit-filled, speak in tongues, a man will be after me. And that's how a lot of people in church have been deceived. Because everyone now is going to church to find a wife. The devil also has run to church to pick husbands. So when you go to church, you feel, this is where I can find a wife. Believe me, sometimes even those who are not yet Christians are better wives for Christians. But because of the kind of doctrine, the kind of dogma that we've given to the congregations, we have put people in a trap. Others, they are coming into Christianity, they get married. When they get married, they find the opposite. At the end of the day, there is no one they can tell because you're already a Christian.
Ania jama type ya meswa mbesi soto wakungaskeni pansi. Akakolewa mwine ni kubieva manji pa nyumba paka ndio. Tipita ma problems ya mbili manini. Lokutaka kupasa ndrama business kuti ambekugulisa ambekufunga vana vonse sakwaniza. Eva na imilira chapepa mu vana ma girlfriend na kumenyana. Saturday Sunday so inde okugona mauti.
So manje na bwana menya lasta na using a speak chana choko mutu na bleed amzuva this time na bleed naenda ku victim kuja atebanga nje bana nyamuna kwenda ku victim kuja police bana ndo muza ku victim anamuza mai we suona kuti uyu mtu aza kupaya suona tubapaya ateba kwa kulete kuno ku victim sichikuwaba iwe nangana nkala uja munchu anataba so kama anabwe ataba bo avolobwera kuja ku victim njemwe vina pescati vasili na zisili after zinaenda ku police ku victim kai kuti vanapo vanipasa alawa vanachita alawa kwakati motoka zakupasa ni mahala then kuenda kusainisa kuti anasainisa mahala chani ndipo inabwana bwira na mapepa pamene anaona mapepa uja anabwera ati abatabira kukopa belt alangala kukopa belt maya yezi yambiri jina bwira pesikati ine na yeveja ya sila vasila na kusila then maini kaenda police solution kulibe penangu bazaka matinisakire ya moto kutuba bwa mgwiri then ndrame ni nilibe sininga sakire ya moto then ndine sakira fitina bana bakuti so nzo pesika jenze ko nzo ngala ko kurusho maningi kuline so maina bwana after anapitamo akabwera futi atenga na maoda ameni oda atenga kani oda nsomba asitenga kuzironga mplasi ko stress ila pansi vija za sansa uka nsomba zija zako batini beyond kulipe vina kuveriza chini sinza stantika sinza chitabwana
ono valembese polisi akapokola valembesa polisi upezati kapena vaosha kaya avapereka ulo kuma victim kuti vazisapotako vana upeza vakapokola vakuza tawe lipira yasodza ndati mugwire ulipira swendo mugwire.
We may have challenges around, I spoke about the front desk officers. It's just about training and building their capacity. When you look at the way they operate, and that's one reason that has been brought up from time to time by members of the public, by some stakeholders, that the inquiries desk is not friendly to victims. When you look at that front desk, it's meant to handle so many complaints and so many inquiries. But now we have developed content and we have trained some officers, especially in Wapula and Muchenga, and a few in Lusaka, but predominantly in Wapula and Muchenga, on how to handle victims of GBV. So the moment that they detect that this is a GBV offense, they should quickly refer to the victim support unit. All right? That is what we are teaching them. That they should not get extra details there because that is what causes the problem, you know. And some feel uncomfortable when they are seeing how the reports are being handled there, when they know mine is confidential, it's a rape case, or my child's is confidential, it's a defilement case, or I am somebody of high status, you know, some things have to do with status. Some people feel they can't just say, my husband beat me up, and you are really this kind of a person, you are a teacher who's known, and you are there. No, my husband beats me up and you're a teacher. You're not free to say those things. So now we want them not to be going into details, to be able to quickly refer them to the victim support where they'll handle them in privacy. That's what we are teaching them. During this quarter, the third quarter, we are actually now moving into the fourth quarter, but we're still receiving reports until 31st December. Third quarter of this year, we received 8,790 reports, out of which 6,300 were criminal, and then the difference was non-criminal. Then for last year's same period, we received 4,042 criminal reports. So when you look at the jump from 4,042 criminal reports to 6,300, that's massive.
Imbisaka inofunka waona mundu amene waona kuti mundu olwanipasa vana tizasungana mukalipokwatira nofunika waona tizasungana uyu mundu olo kapena tizambomenyana olo kapena tizasunga bwanji vana mukawaona papani mukalipokwatirana mtu amene umowa wake akamwa ive kainini ndio chabo kujesa vana bwinobwino kulima so tilimbisako ava amene wakalipokwatiriwa wakalibe kubalisiwa vana vafunika vaona kuti mwamuna azanisunga olo bwanji olo vana azavasunga olo bwanji mukalipokwatira nofunika waona.
The other thing certainly which we need to talk so much about is the use of drugs, which usually cultivates to gender violence. Abuse of alcohol equally also has a potential to graduate what can be avoided to gender violence and then to a crime. So as advocates between the government and the employees, who are our members, who are teachers themselves, we give you this advice as a union that can you abstain from gender violence? It does not pay. We have to live in harmony amongst ourselves, and we have to show good example to the coming generation, the next generation of leaders. We cannot groom a leader by introducing this leader to gender violence. It doesn't work like that. When there is an act of gender violence and is posted on the social media, other people may even comment as if it's a correct way of dealing with such a situation, which is quite negative. Social media also should help us also inculcate civility and avoid going into the depression of gender violence. I think this is the way we want to approach it as professional teachers in Mozambique.
Pamene ninga bauzeko pamene vakali kumenyana. Pamene patu vakali moyo. Vakali moyo beta basiyana, kuchira bakapayo nafa bazapaya these days abantu bapayana. Munga yamene tifesingana nayo maishu yako bati mkazi anapaya mwamuna wake, mwamuna anapaya mkazi wake. So ukaona bakuvuta. Endakolo pa victim pachani bakutandiza bazapeza solution yamene banga kutandizireni.
It should, I think, be a responsibility of all of us to protect each other. Just like Genesis chapter 4, I think God reminded the brother who killed the brother and said, you are supposed to be your brother's keeper. We need to develop an attitude to protect each other. If I see a weakness in someone, I should be able to make sure that that weakness is not taken advantage of. Because whatever happens to anyone still affects me. We've seen, I think, in the nation that one person who commits a sin, it affects all the men. Now all men are called dogs. Why? Because of one person who did something that was not right. So to protect our name, we need to protect each other. To protect our reputation, we need to protect each other. To protect our nation, we need to protect each other. We just need to stand for each other. If I make it, we've made it together. If I stand strong, we are standing strong together. That way, our nation is going to actually uphold a very powerful image of unity that is needed everywhere, whether in church or outside church. We just need to take it that way. If you are poor, it affects me. If you are rich, it benefits me. We begin to support each other. I think this is something that we've never talked about for generations. We now need to start building it up.
When it comes to GBV, in schools, in homes, in churches, my take on this would be that everyone must be on the lookout for these criminals who appear to be our relatives in our homes. So every parent, therefore, when it comes to children who are very vulnerable, I'm talking about defilements, I'm talking about sodomy, and even just child battery, contrary to section 248 of the Penal Code. Parents of these children must be on the lookout, because these people are everywhere, They present themselves as siblings, as brothers, as neighbors, when in fact they are criminals. That is what they are. So every parent and teachers and everyone in authority in these environments, and everyone who's found in that environment should be on the lookout, because the people that commit GBV come from domestic setups, the people that we trust, our fathers, our mothers, everyone in domestic relationships, our neighbors, our maids, our garden boys are the ones that commit. So everyone should be on the lookout, because if they're not on the lookout, then children especially will be prone, because they're very vulnerable to abuse. So everyone should look at everyone else with that eye, of safeguarding, a child, safeguarding a child. And even where we have adults, we have adults who are raped within their homesteads by people within that same setup, domestic relationship. So my summary would be, everyone should be on the lookout for these criminals who are actually in our homes, in our churches, in our schools. What is important is they should have information around what really constitutes GBV. And when it occurs, what should be done? That is what is very key. Age-appropriate content for the children, properly packaged messages for everyone, wherever they may be, to be able to assist each other. Because the people that we sensitize also involve the very people that perpetrate GBV.
Yes, I am safe. Because, why I'm saying I'm safe is because if my dad was not telling me about the realities and was not telling me some of the do's and don'ts, I wouldn't have learned. Because he usually tells me some boys don't really mean well when they come to approach you. Some will come in form of saying they are brothers, but they've got interest. So you have to know, like, the way they approach you and the way they come, they show up to you. You have to know.
Actually, we have recent cases of female teachers being murdered. A cold-blood death, which is unfortunate. The people coined this theme. We thank them because they also attached great importance of institutions of learning, schools. I believe when they talked about schools, they even talked about universities and colleges. I think that's the great understanding of, the broad understanding of this. Definitely, you must agree that learning institution houses a good number of people who are prone to gender violence, especially women. Women have been a target of this because they may not explain effectively on certain things. As a result, altercations start, and they are always, usually they are in the losing side, on the losing side. If they can't lose, they will retaliate, and usually when a woman retaliates, usually it's a fatal accident, and that we have witnessed. Schools play a major role. Learning institutions play a major role in most of the activities of living. And on the negative side, this is where actually it's easy to find out, to note that there's gender violence because of the working environment itself. On this issue, it means learning institutions should be used to advocate for anti-gender violence.
One good thing is that I was actually having a chat with my daughter about it, especially that, like at home, sometimes our children are not safe. Who I bring into the house might be a danger to my own daughter. Maybe I bring a brother into the house. You don't know the kind of vices that particular brother has and what that brother of mine can do to my daughter if I'm not around. So most of the times you find to say there's danger everywhere. There's danger everywhere. Why? Because these teenage girls, they reach a certain level where they have feelings and they don't know what to do. And since there is no education offered on such things, they fall prey to anyone. Because imagine if they have those feelings and then the uncle is there and they're watching certain movies, the uncle may take advantage. Going to church, you see a lot of people, like I said, look at church as a safe place, but church is a jungle. Imagine Jesus giving an example of the wheat and the tares and comparing it to the church, the goat and the sheep. comparing it to the church. So the church doesn't have one personality. It is a mixture, like the Ark of Noah. There are different animals in the church. Some are boys who have just been probably helped to come out of certain abuse of alcohol. Others are into smoking. They are in church as lions roaming to see the girls who have no exposure. In church also, everyone, like when you go to a place and they tell you park at your own risk, when people come to church, they need to remain self-protective. They need to know that I should not trust anybody, because the Bible itself says, woe unto you if you put your trust in man. So every woman, when you come to church, even me, every woman when they come to, they should not trust me, because they might come at a time when the tempter is just next to me. So they need to know how to resist. The Bible says, resist the devil and he will flee from you.
It is a fact that about 43% of married women reported to have experienced some form of physical or sexual violence from their husbands or partners. And that is because gender inequality is prevalent and reflected in low status and limited opportunities for women and girls. In addition to poverty, cultural and traditional practices which continue to infringe the rights of women and girls.
Despite the grim pictures, statistics suggest that women are taking steps to report GBV cases as compared to the past, where most cases were considered family or private issues and went unreported. Responding to the safety of young boys, girls, and women at home, school, church, and/or work guarantees without bias attainment of gender equality and the realization of social and economic goals of Zambia, as it safely will boost the confidence of the survivors that they too can contribute to the developmental efforts. Remember to give us your feedback via email documentaries@diamondtvzambia.com. This has been The Digest. Thank you for joining us.